Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So recently the Supreme Court of India passed a judgment in a matter pertaining stray dogs and stray cattle. This November 7th judgment has left the internet divided into two, with a section of people celebrating and cheering for the judgment, and a section of people who are criticizing the judgment, calling it irrational, unscientific and unreasonable. Now, instead of relying on social media reactions and news reports, let us understand the judgment by reading the detailed court order. It is a 33-point order, and for the scope of this video, we will be touching upon few points in the court order. I have nonetheless linked this judgment in the video description section, and I urge everybody to read the entire judgment and do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. By the way, for those of you who are new to this channel, hi, I'm Rohan. I'm an alumni of IIT Bombay, and I make YouTube videos as a part-time hobby. Okay. Now let's begin with point number 12. Point number 12 mentions that this court has been apprised through various news reports and media accounts of disturbing increase in dog bite incidents within the premises of educational institutions, hospitals, sports complexes, bus stands, railway stations, generally speaking institutional area. Instances of children being attacked in school campuses, patients and attendants being bitten within hospital compound, athletes as well as officials being attacked by stray dogs inside sports stadium, and passengers, travelers being attacked by stray dogs at bus stands, depots and railway stations have come to the notice of this court. Okay, so point number 12 basically says that the court has taken cognizance of this entire matter based on news reports. Now, let's come to point number 15, which is a very important point. Point number 15 says that recognizing the need for a humane yet effective framework, the Government of India, in exercise of its power under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960, promulgated the Animal Birth Control Rules 2001, subsequently amended and supplemented from time to time. These rules establish the capture, sterilize, vaccinate, release model as the principal method for controlling the stray dog population, thereby prohibiting indiscriminate culling of stray dogs and mandating municipal authorities to manage sterilization, vaccination and sheltering in coordination with animal welfare organizations. However, the implementation of these rules has been ineffective to say the least across jurisdictions, and the persistence of stray dog population has continued to imperil public safety in many parts of this country. Point number 15 basically mentions about the Animal Birth Control Rules 2001, and the court also says that how these rules have been poorly implemented across various jurisdictions, across various municipalities. Okay, we will come to Animal Birth Control Rules 2001 and what the ABC rules are in the later section of this video. In case you want to skip to that section, here is the timestamp which you should go right now to see my reaction to this entire judgment, as well as my take and my suggestions to the Honorable Court. Okay. Point number 16 says that it has been brought to the notice of this court through a report published by NDTV that even foreign nationals visiting India fall in prey to unprovoked stray dog attacks. Basically, point 16 says that it points to a NDTV report wherein a foreign national who was on his morning run was bitten by a stray dog in Bangalore. After point number 16, there are again references of media reports where a stray dog mentioning stray dog attacks or stray dog bites taking place inside school and college campuses, inside hospitals and healthcare institutions, inside sports complexes, inside bus stands and railway terminals, etc. Okay, so these are all media reports. The court is referencing media reports in each of these particular sections. Okay, now let's come to point number 25, which has been the bone of this entire debate which is raging in this country. Point number 25 falls under section 4 of this judgment, that is directions. And specifically point number 25E mentions that it shall be the responsibility of the jurisdictional municipal body authority to forthwith remove every stray dog found within the premises of an educational institute, hospital, whether public or private, sports complex, bus stand, railway station, and to shift such animals to a designated shelter after due sterilization and vaccination in accordance with the Animal Birth Control Rules 2023. The stray dogs so picked up shall not be released back to the same location from which they were picked up. We have consciously directed the non-release of such stray dogs to the same location from which they were picked up, as permitting the same would frustrate the very effect of the directions issued to liberate such institutional areas from the presence of stray dogs. Basically, in point number 25E, the Supreme Court of India is issuing directions to the municipal authorities to capture the stray dogs from various places and not release them back to the same places. I hope the Supreme Court order in a broad sense is clear to you. And here's my take on it. Firstly, as I mentioned earlier, that this entire case is a suo motu case. Suo motu का मतलब क्या होता है? That nobody actually complained to the Supreme Court that, look boss, I feel that there is an increase in the number of dog related incidents and I urge you to kindly issue orders. Rather, the Supreme Court, based on media reports, has taken cognizance of the matter and thereby issued orders. Now, this is very scary because in today's age of information and misinformation, I hope you would agree with me that media and social media are largely used to shape perceptions, to build opinions. The kind of hype which they create around any matter, be it pertaining to elections, be it pertaining to social issues, be it pertaining to national issues, be it pertaining to global issues, the hype created is far from the reality on ground. The ground reality would be X, but the kind of hype which is created in the social media and the print media is 10x for various number of reasons, such as TRP, such as who's paying for their ads, who's sponsoring the media houses, what is the ideology on the basis of which these media houses are running, right? So the Supreme Court of India relying on media houses seems to me, as a citizen of this country, a very dangerous thing. In the entire judgment, I could nowhere see that the Supreme Court actually appointed a committee of experts in, say, veterinary care, experts in animal behavior, experts in canine behavior, to understand the root cause of this problem. Okay, and rather it has relied solely on media reports. And even if media reports were the benchmark for the Supreme Court to take cognizance, there are so many media reports which talk about how dogs have saved lives, how dogs have stopped a woman from being kidnapped, how dogs have stopped a woman from being raped, how dogs have guarded a newborn child for 2 or 3 days who was dumped in the garbage, alerted the locals, and eventually the life of that child could be saved. Right? How dogs serve as emotional support for students in various universities. In today's article on midday, I was reading about an article of IIT Bombay, my alma mater, where some students, express how they deal with their stress by just interacting with the dogs for some time. So definitely the Supreme Court has only looked or chosen to look at only the negative side of the news and not the positive side of the news related to stray dogs or stray animals at large. Okay. Now, you might have noticed that in this particular judgment, the Supreme Court multiple times talks about this Animal Birth Control Rules 2023. So this is a copy of the ABC Rules 2023 issued by the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying. So before I dive into this animal birth, before understanding the Animal Birth Control Rules 2023, let me just take a minute of your time and tell you about two kinds of animals which live in nature. One kind of animals are herd animals and another kind of animals are territorial animals. Herd animals live in a large group together. Their survival depends upon the collective instinct of the group, and they often move from one place to another place in search of food, water and shelter. In nature, you will see animals such as elephants, deers, zebras, wildebeest, buffaloes, cows, sheep, goats. They all live in a large group together. They only survive by that herd nature and the herd instinct. On the other hand, the animals which are territorial in nature, such as lions, tigers, leopards, dogs, wolves, etc., they live in a particular territory. हम बोलते ना यार कि शेर का इलाका होता है, कुत्ते का इलाका होता है. उसका मतलब क्या होता है? That nature has created them to be such a way that they live in a earmarked territory and they defend that territory of theirs from any ingress, be it species of their own or be it some other species. They will defend that particular piece of land. They are born in that piece of land. They will stay in that piece of land, and they will die in that piece of land. Okay, for them, living in large groups is not natural. For them, what is natural is living in a small group, but in a particular location or territory of their own. You might have seen that in the wild as well as domestically, these animals mark their territories. They patrol their territories because that is how nature has designed them to be. This is not something I or you get to decide. This is just nature. This is just the instinct of those animals. This is how they survive. Okay. Now coming to the ABC rules. ABC rules, the latest amended version was issued on 10th March 2023 by the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying. ABC rules क्या होता है? Basically, ABC rules are animal birth control rules. They empower the local municipal bodies and also mention to the local municipal authorities that it is your duty to carry out sterilization and vaccination activities of stray dogs and stray cats in your locality. It lists out the standard operating procedure for doing so. For example, the first step is like you have to identify the stray dogs in your locality which are fit to undergo sterilization and vaccination. Sterilization का मतलब होता है नसबंदी, vaccination का मतलब होता है टीका करना. Identification का मतलब होता है that you cannot pick a dog which is less than 6 months of age or a mother which has just given birth to her puppies, etc. So the first step of ABC guidelines is to identify the dogs which are fit to undergo sterilization and vaccination. The second step is that you have to capture them in the humane way possible. And then there are further steps about after capturing, you have to take them to a designated shelter where they will undergo sterilization and vaccination activities. And after the surgery is done, after जब उनकी नसबंदी हो गई है, then you have to keep them at the shelter for 4 to 5 days, monitor them for any symptoms, and administer post-operative care. The final step, as per the ABC guidelines, is to release the dogs back from the territory they were picked up from. It also has provision for in case say a dog is sterilized and you feel that the dog is aggressive, the ABC rules also has provision to deal with aggressive dogs or those dogs who are showing rabies-like symptoms. Section 16 of the ABC rules deals with resolution of complaints regarding dog bites or rabid dogs. Okay, so there is another under section 16, there are 9 sub-points which detail the procedure for dealing with such dogs. These rules are framed for a reason. There is countless number of man-hours and scientific acumen that has gone into framing these laws. Here's where the dangerous part of the judgment is. The Supreme Court of India has chosen only to implement few sections of the animal birth control rules, and then it has added its own judgment in it and passed a compound order. This is very dangerous because, look, we live in a democracy. And I believe that the role of the Supreme Court of India is to interpret the laws and not make the laws themselves. Otherwise, what's the point of having a democracy? What's the point of having laws if the court is just going to trample upon them and say that, look, boss, I don't care what the law is. Here's what I believe is right, and here's what you'll do, and here's what everybody is do because I am the Supreme Court of India, because I am in a position of power. I believe that is a very dangerous precedent because today people may be celebrating this order. Some people who hate animals, who hate dogs may be celebrating this order. But tomorrow when the same court does something similar wherein they bypass the existing laws, they say that, okay, we don't care. If this existing law says that you need to release the dog back, we will direct that the dog may not be released back, even though the law says so. Tomorrow, when in another matter which you care about, the Supreme Court acts similarly, then you will be very pissed and very aggrieved at the Supreme Court. Okay. So this is a very dangerous precedent because we live in a democracy and because it is expected that the courts could at least leave the framing of laws and making of laws to the executive. There is a reason why we have the parliament and the government who are empowered, whose job is to make laws, whose job is to amend laws, whereas the job of the Supreme Court, again, in my understanding, is to interpret those laws. So this is a very dangerous precedent for a functioning democracy. Now in continuation with this animal birth control laws, let me tell you why we have a stray dog population increase in our country. It is not because the laws are weak, it is because the local municipal authorities have failed to implement these laws effectively. I come from Mumbai and I must laud the Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation or the BMC because Mumbai में यार sterilization बहुत तगड़ा किया हुआ है BMC ने. In a lot of localities of Mumbai, dogs have been sterilized very effectively. The BMC carries out vaccination drives and sterilization drives periodically, and you will see that in Mumbai, the birth of new dogs is very less. And subsequently, when you look into tier 2, tier 3 cities and a lot of other cities, you will see that the ABC program is poorly implemented. One which even, this point is even captured by the Supreme Court of India, that the ABC program is poorly implemented. And that is the reason why there is an increase in the dog population. And it is not that this increase in the dog population is helping the dogs. Rather, the dogs are a victim of the system itself, because you will see very sad images. You will see that there are newborn mothers who are very malnourished and they are searching for food for their puppies from one dustbin to another dustbin. And you will see that, every 5 or 6 months when these pups are born, most of them die. They die because of some accidents. They die because they contracted a disease because they were not vaccinated. So dogs are actually a victim of this particular system where the local municipal authorities at many places have failed to do their job. And rather than pulling up the local municipal authorities, the Supreme Court has rather deflected the blame on the dogs itself, which is also very saddening to see that the Supreme Court is issuing such orders. The court also talks about foreign nationals being bitten by stray dogs. And this particular thing is just, I'm not able to register ki yaar, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that the image of this country is spoiled because there are stray dogs in this country, or because 1 or 2 foreign nationals got bit by stray dogs? It is very ridiculous, right, to think that way, because यार इंडिया में तो बाकी कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है ना, बिकॉज द फॉरेन नेशनल्स जब आते हैं यहाँ पे दे से दैट यार इंडिया का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नंबर 1 है, इंडिया का ट्रैवल एकदम नंबर 1 है, रोड्स नंबर 1 है, इंडिया का सिविक सेंस नंबर 1 है. बस यार डॉग्स है ना इंडिया में, इमेज खराब हो गया यार इंडिया का, यार मज़ा नहीं आया. Because foreign nationals don't face any issue, sir, right? Foreign nationals are not looted, foreign nationals are not murdered, foreign nationals are not raped. Right? Foreign nationals they are bit by dog यार, बहुत बुरा हुआ. So I don't have anything else to add to that. It's just यार perfect है बाकी सब ना, बस dogs का मामला है, right? So nothing much to add to that particular point. Now, what are the implications of this particular judgment? In short, in my opinion, the implications is a death sentence to all the dogs. Because, this particular case of putting all dogs in a shelter actually happened once in one of the most prestigious institutes in this country, IIT Madras. So in 2019, IIT Madras decided that we will capture all the dogs in our institute and put them in a dog shelter built in the IIT Madras campus itself. 180 dogs were captured and 30% of the dogs died within 1 year of capture. Eventually, by the time IIT Madras was ordered to release the dogs back to campus, only 27 dogs were released back. 180 went in and 27 came out. You can see the attrition rate. Although IIT Madras has mentioned that a lot of dogs got adopted, but there are reports that no concrete evidence was presented by the IIT Madras authorities. Now, I am not saying that IIT Madras authorities deliberately killed the dogs. All I'm saying is that because these dogs are not used to living in a herd, because they are used to living in their territory, once you cage them or once you put them in pounds where there are so many of them together, it is very stressful to them. It is very against their natural instincts. It is against nature. And this is what a consequence, this is the consequence of that. So when the Supreme Court of India says that we need to capture all the dogs and put them into the shelter, and let me ask the Supreme Court, who is going to manage the shelter, sir? Isn't the shelter going to be managed by the same municipal authorities and district bodies which you have criticized for poor implementation of the ABC rules? Aren't they the same people who are going to manage the shelter? So if they were not even able to do their job of sterilization and vaccination, which actually involves the dog staying in that particular designated shelter for a maximum of 10 to 15 days. अगर वो नहीं कर पाए, how can you entrust them with taking care of dogs through the entire life of the dogs? Average life of a dog is 10 to 12 years. Okay, how do you entrust them to take care of the dogs for the next 10 to 12 years of their life? And what about the money? What about the resources which will go into building such shelters and managing such shelters? At least on paper, let us be frank. Are you saying that there will be no corruption? Are you saying that all the money which is sanctioned to maybe feed the dogs, to medically look after the dogs, is actually going to reach the dogs? And whose money is this? This is the taxpayers' money, right? Can't the taxpayers' money be put to build better roads, to provide better healthcare infrastructure, to provide better transport infrastructure in this country? Is this the real problem you want to put the taxpayers' money into? And that too, which is in all likelihood going to go into corruption. Are you going to investigate each and every death which happens in these shelters? Or are you going to give volunteers unfettered access to the shelters, right? To monitor whether the dogs are being fed, whether they are being medically cared for, whether their shelters are cleaned regularly, right? Who is going to monitor this? Please let me know, sir. Do you have that much time to monitor each and every death case, right? So in effect, metaphorically, this is a death sentence to the dogs. And I believe that crores of rupees of taxpayers' money is going to go into the pockets of individuals who will manage these shelters, of people who will sanction these shelters, etc. Okay, and this is a harsh reality. I don't also understand what is the logic of removing stray dogs from all the places, schools, college, hospitals, sports complex, etc., and saying that they are okay to live in residential complexes. What kind of scientific reasoning is this? क्या stray dog को पता रहता है क्या यार, मैं तो अब ना IIT में रहता हूँ, मैं IIT बॉम्बे का स्ट्रे डॉग हूँ, तो यार मैं तो बच्चों को काटता हूँ. अरे नहीं यार, मैं तो यार ये छोटी सी सोसाइटी में रहता हूँ, तो मैं किसको नहीं काटूंगा. ऐसा नहीं होता है यार. मतलब ये क्या सेंस बनता है दैट यहाँ से हटाओ, वहाँ से मत हटाओ. लास्टली आई वॉन्ट टू आस्क द कोर्ट, sir, who gave you the moral right? I am not talking about legal right. Probably there are provisions in the constitution which give you extraordinary powers to do whatever to pass judgments however you feel is the best. But sir, who gave you the moral right to order removing of all these dogs and to send them to shelters? In my college, when I was a student back in IIT Bombay, whenever there was a lot of stress or in general, during my entire day, I would stay with stray dogs. I took care of them. I sent countless stray dogs for sterilization, right? I helped the BMC vaccinate these stray dogs. And it has been well proven scientifically across the world that stray dogs, or dogs in general, dogs and cats, have therapeutic value. They help relieve stress. They make you feel better. When I was a student and even now, I spent a lot of my time with stray dogs whenever in stress or in general. I felt happy doing that. Today, you are passing directions to remove that particular dog which never bit anybody, which nobody had any issue with. But just because you read some media reports about some stray dog incidents, you decided that everybody in a blanket manner will be removed from all these places. Who gave you the moral right to do that? Who gave you the right to play God? I am asking this question. Somebody please explain to me in the comment section. Why? And I end this video on a very heavy note, and I pray for the countless dogs who will lose their lives and who will undergo terrible suffering as a result of this judgment. Because mind you, there will be suffering and there will be loss of dog lives. Okay. The Supreme Court of India is not going to monitor each and every instance of dogs getting picked up. It is not humanly possible for these 3 judges to see whether there are guidelines such as, first make a boundary around educational institute and then pick up the dogs. They are not going to come down and see that, actually boundary banaya kya, then kutto to uthaya gaya. जब local municipal authorities उठाएंगे ना, तो वो बस बोलेंगे कोर्ट का जजमेंट है और मैं और आप कुछ नहीं कर पाएंगे. ठीक है. So there will be these things. The court is not going to come and monitor them. The court is definitely not going to come and monitor the situation of dogs in the shelters. So again, I pray for those dogs who will suffer, whose existence has been taken away from them. The way they existed in nature, the way they existed for countless years in this particular country, in this land of India, where we are taught to be kind and compassionate, where it is mentioned in our constitution, Article 51A, subsection G asks us to be kind and compassionate to all living creatures and environment. It is sad that भारत की इस भूमि में इस टाइप का जजमेंट पास हुआ है. I again urge the Supreme Court of India to kindly revise your court order and hold the perpetrators to account, hold those municipal bodies who have not enforced the ABC guidelines, due to which there is an increase in number of, increase in the dog population. And mind you, sterilization of dogs also has a lot of benefits, such as it calms the dogs down. जो दो मेल कुत्ते एक दूसरे से लड़ते हैं to mate the female, that stops. The females who give birth and undergo that cycle of birth, and then the puppies are born, and then the puppies die, and then they again give birth and search for foods here and there, that stops. Sterilization has a lot of benefits. Just because the municipal corporations are not implementing the sterilization program effectively, the dogs are paying the price. The people who are attached to these dogs will pay the price. The students who seek comfort in these dogs, to deal with stress and to deal with life, will pay the price. Everybody will pay the price. And democracy, this is a very dark day and a sad judgment for a democratic nation which relies on laws, which has a constitution. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much for watching this video. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata Ki Jai.